Hi, Dave. Hi, Matt. How are you? Pretty good. Pretty good.
I see the presentation is here.
He called me yesterday. Oh, yeah. Anticipate this meeting and. Okay. All right, we do have 10 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order and we'll rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks everybody for showing up today. We will start the meeting with public forum. I see some here. Yep, you guys can come up, just state your name, where you're from. You got 3 minutes.
Denise Weiss, Fraston. I would like to talk about cannabis. 231 hours. That's how many hours it takes for our family to pay our property taxes each year to Pine County. That's how many hours we have to work. It took us 13,000 hours to buy our home in Pine County. I have spoken for 78 minutes on cannabis, asking not to put this in residential communities. That's far less time than what it took me to maintain our home and to buy our home in Pine County. Per 20,000, there was an article that we kind of are concentrating on just the drying aspect, and that's the only odor that this creates. That 20,000 isn't very big. 20,000 plants is about 20,000 square feet, is a minimum of 6,000 plants. You know, this is some big stuff with about 14 million gallons of water using the government statistics. You guys say odor doesn't make a difference. There's articles that said these plants start smelling at 3 to 4 weeks of age. They start smelling, they only intensify, they mature around 10 weeks. So by the time 3 to 4 weeks prior to maturity is at their peak. And then you got the 2 weeks of drying time. And that's pulled from articles. So it's very frustrating if you read something in the paper that we're not really considering all of these things. The map, they indicate these facilities have distinct unpleasant odors similar to the potencies of those of feedlots. This is from the Minnesota Association of Counties. They also talk about the different zoning and to try and keep these away from things. These are all things that you guys had. These are things that were taken in the first draft. Why we say the second draft and the third draft is not as good as the first. The zoning uses. Again, OCM doesn't recommend these be in necessarily residential areas. You look at the definition by manufacturing, and it says that it can be allowed. You can have consumables if you're in a manufacturing. Now, we don't have zoning for manufacturing, nor do we have a lot restriction size or boundaries. It says an operation establishment that permits on-site consumptions of edible cannabis products. You know, you're saying that these can be right next to residential homes. We don't allow bars over age 21 products strip clubs next to residential homes. But yet we are allowing this. And when we say you need to look at this ordinance, the old one, to correct it, these are the reasons why. Not that we're banning it, but they don't necessarily belong in residential communities. Industrial, commercially zoned areas. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Patrice?
Patrice DeGray, Graston, Royalton. After reading the Pine County zoning ordinance last amended March 18, we found several statements that are not exhibited in the cannabis business ordinances. For example, purpose, regulate land use in a manner appropriate to the locality. Other ones protect community appeal and property values from incompatible land uses and preserve natural resources and environmental quality. Under definitions, you have nuisance, any property condition that is injurious to health or indecent or offensive to the senses or an obstruction to the free use of property so as to interfere with the comfortable enjoyment of life and property. Under compliance, the provisions shall be met. Any structure is sited, erected, constructed, moved, any of that, it has to be done before that. Criteria for conditional and interim permits. The zoning board shall determine that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibration, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighting in such manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. The proposed use shall be consistent with and not harmful to the environment of the neighborhood, taking into consideration the probable hours of operation, number of employees. The location and character of the proposed use are consistent with desirable pattern or development of general locality. Variance, the zoning board may impose conditions in the granting of variances to ensure compliance and to protect adjacent properties and the public interest from any potential adverse effects. The variance will not alter the essential character of the locality. Environmental review. The purpose is to provide for the preparation and review of environmental assessment worksheets, the EAW, the environmental impact statements, and other environmental documents under the Minnesota statutes and rules. So my two questions are, which ordinance overrides the other? And why does the ordinance 2024-58 regulating cannabis begin with? The purpose of this ordinance is to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of its residents by regulating adult use cannabis businesses within the legal boundaries of Pine County. Our property values are decreasing. We're ready to sell. That's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yep.
John DeGray, Royalton Township. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of questions that I want to be answered. So is this an agricultural product? It's still it's Schedule I drug by the federal government. Is this just a variance that you wrote on your ordinance? Because you're not following your own other ordinances, because if you're gonna have retail in this, it says you don't have any retail in agricultural zone product districts. So what is it? So do they need an interim permit. And who would do that? Does our township do it? Because now you've just classified them as businesses. So they should need an interim use permit. So are you guys covering that? Or do our township cover that? Who's gonna give building permits for these? Because if you're taking our if we're just following your ordinance, are you taking all of our zoning or are you permitting anything that's gonna go on in these buildings? So these are some of the questions that I would like to answer, because, you know, you ain't stating anything here. And then the other thing is, someone told me that, you know, we can't do it morally. Well, this is still a drug. So we need to do it morally. This is not something God would want us to do. So we can't just take morals out of this. Our country was founded on morals. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Anybody else? Okay, state your name and where you're from. And you got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board. My name is Trent Canterberg. I'm a resident of Pine County. I live in Brook Park Township, 4323 State Highway 23. I'm a fortunate recipient of a pre-approval for a micro business. I've also been working with the county to obtain a retail license, and I look very much forward to operating a legal dispensary for cannabis within Pine County, serving all of our community members, yourself included. You're more than welcome to stop in. I want to actually start off by thanking this board and the zoning board who work specifically on the ordinance for cannabis. They have worked very diligently, working within the confines of the state regulation and making sure that what they're doing is fair, equitable, and just, and making sure everything is within reasonable restrictions. And I applaud the board for coming to the final solution that they did. They made it so small businesses like myself can operate, and I'm very appreciative of that. So thank you. It's unfortunate to see that there's still continued dispute about cannabis in general, despite them, some voices, some residents coming and talking about cannabis and how unmoral it is and how they're not looking to block it. I truly believe their intentions are to make it illegal at the state. I believe that they should be having that conversation at a state level, not the county level. Again, this county has done a fantastic job and is leading the state with regard to zoning ordinances. There are most counties still struggling, trying to figure out what are they going to do with cannabis, and you guys are at the forefront. So despite the 0.0001% of the Pine County population that's present in dispute in opposition to this, I think you guys are still doing a fantastic job. Let's talk a little bit about morality here, since that was brought up from the last speaker as well. I read in the paper that a pastor came here as well and gave in essence, a sermon about how immoral cannabis is. And I would like to ask that pastor, along with the people in this crowd, a rhetorical question, which would be, if cannabis is immoral, who created it? Are we suggesting that our creator is immoral? Last time I checked, sin is created by man, not by a plant. And if we look to the Bible, we can look at Genesis 1:29, where it actually talks about every seed-bearing plant and herb is for consumption. Or we can look to Ezekiel 47:12, where it talks about the leaves of the fig tree being used for healing. Or maybe Psalm 104:14, where plants are for the service of man. If that's not enough evidence, we can look further to Jeremiah, where they talk about using different plants for balms to treat various sores. Or perhaps Isaiah mentions figs for treating boils. Or we could go back to Genesis once again, where mandrake is used for fertility for both Leah and Jacob. If that's not enough, we can look back to further US publications going back. We can look at the United States Pharmacopoeia publication. Cannabis was first described in the USP in 1850 and was listed as a licensed medicine for about a century. About a century. It was used to treat various conditions, including etc. We'll skip past that because I can't pronounce half of these.
We're about time up here, so.
So I guess I'll wrap it up by just saying this. You guys have done a fantastic job, and despite the squeaky wheel continuing to come here and making a fuss, I still think you guys have done a fantastic job. I don't believe that squeaky wheel needs any grease. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, sir. What was your address? Can I ask him? What was your address again, your location?
Yes, sir. 4323 State Highway 23.
4323 State
Highway 23.
Highway
23. Basically right across the street from the meadery if you know where the
What town is that?
Brook Park.
Brook Park.
Yes, sir. And I would encourage you to come on out, and I would encourage anyone to come on out. If they want to smell cannabis from outside of my property, you're more than welcome to. I'm growing plants right now. I had part of the zoning board present to experience that as well. I understand your guys' fears. I'm more than welcome, or more than happy to welcome you to my home so you can smell the property as well.
Remember, you could eat the apple either, remember?
All right.
So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to adopting the agenda.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if we could add agenda item 7.1, consideration of a purchase of a dispatch console from Motorola in the amount of $119,369. So that would be 7.1. And then there's two additional pieces of information. One is the PowerPoint handout for the nanobubbles project, and the other is the PowerPoint for the County State Aid 46 Lakeland Road discussion.
Okay,
I'll move as amended.
all right. We got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Holland. Is there any other discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Approve the minutes of the June 3rd, 2025 regular county board meeting and summary for publication.
I'll move that.
Okay, we got a motion by Holland. Second by Nelson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Acknowledge the minutes of boards, committees and correspondence, Housing Redevelopment Authority and Economic Development Authority, and Land Advisory Committee and Pine County Zoning Board minutes.
I'll move those, Chair, Mr. Chair.
All right. We got a motion by Ludwig,
I'll second it.
second by Holland. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. We have the consent agenda.
I'll approve. I'll motion.
Okay. Consent agenda, we got a motion by Holland. Second by Nelson. Okay, any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. All right, personal committee report. Want me to go or you want to do it?
If you want, I'll take it.
What's that?
I'll take it if you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah. You saw the minutes and stuff and the thing, but the action items on there are human services, veteran services, acknowledge the resignation of part-time assistant county veteran service officer Dan Birch, effective June 25th, authorize the backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies resulting from internal promotion or lateral transfer. And then should I do both, Mr. Chair, and do them at one motion?
I think so, yeah.
Sheriff's Office Dispatch was acknowledged the resignation of part-time probationary dispatch Desiree Strumble effective June 2nd. And authorize the backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies resulting from internal or lateral transfer. And after that, I'll say it was a pretty quick meeting. We were kind of in and out of there. I will move those two action items on the resignation.
And I'll second with discussion. We did have a lot of discussion about the veteran service, assistant veteran service person and since we did that, I can't remember exactly when we added that, but it was a little bit of time ago. What they've done in that department with the outreach is what we wanted done is they're getting a lot of people back. Previously, that office wasn't doing a very good job. And a lot of veterans, I was getting calls from veterans that were leaving the county, going somewhere else, which they have the right to do that, to try to find some better services. And Mindy and her group there have really done a good job. getting that back. So,
Yeah, and I will add that when it wasn't very long ago when we had our veterans going to other counties for this. And she said they were serving 2,104 veterans in the county now. And their drop-ins are showing up so much right now. And then I think a big part of the discussion was from Barb's part of Health and Human Services, where she pretty much ends up providing that front counter person here for free through that. So that they can take some of the drop-ins that come in and get them referred out. Is that the way it happens, Dave?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ludwig. So there's a staff sharing, so that it's not a direct cost to the Veterans Office for that higher level of service, because Barb is able to cover that in her social services budget.
So it's kind of interesting how that worked together. And then the other thing that we talked about again is when we first were putting the veterans with Health and Human Services in the same building, there was kind of some pushback out there. And ended up doing nothing, because so many times when the veterans come in and it's something that they don't get all the qualifications they need, the referral happens right away to, and Mindy's so great at that because she used to work with Health and Human Services, plus she was a veterans veteran, so they can connect them to more possible help from Health and Human Services. So anyway, it was a really interesting discussion, and it seems like it's been pretty successful.
and the other thing we did talk briefly about is even up in that position a little bit. But obviously through the budget discussion, we're gonna talk about that. And we're all well aware, and we told
Yeah.
Barb and that department that we're well aware that we're gonna have a difficult budget season. So, but it would be, we wanted to just see the numbers, like bring it back. And I think she's working with Becky as well about just seeing what that would look like and what they could do with a little bit more. Because right now they are limited, just resource period. There's not enough hours in the day for them to get it all done. So, yeah.
What's happening is Mindy's out so often,
Mhm.
because she goes to Pine City and all over the county, that you have to have somebody to grab the drop-ins.
Yep. So, yeah, that was just a little bit more discussion on that. It was a good discussion. So, does anybody else have any other discussion on the two action items? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Okay, we will move on to the nano bubble project update. So we got Jill, Kathy, and John.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. My name is Kathy Nielsen, and I am the co-chair of the Water Quality Committee for the Pokegama Lake Association. Joining me today is my other co-chair, Jill Yakush, who's here to answer any questions you may have, and our colleague, Jonathan Morales from Moliere. I can't tell you how many times I have called him Jonathan Moliere from Morales. We are grateful for this opportunity to inform you about a innovative new clean water lake restoration project that we are implementing on Pokegama Lake. By way of background, Pokegama Lake is the second largest lake in the county, and it is the largest lake in the county that has been listed as impaired. In 2004, Pokegama Lake was listed as impaired for aquatic recreation because of the excessive nutrients in the lake, leading to harmful algae blooms. In 2012, Pokegama Lake was part of a statewide impairment for mercury because of elevated mercury levels in fish tissue, which has led to a reduction in the recommendations for consumption of fish removed from Pokegama Lake. And in 2020, Pokegama Lake was listed as impaired for aquatic environment due to our reduced fish populations and diversity as a result of poor water quality within the lake. These impairments have represented a significant risk to the health, safety, and welfare of lake users. Harmful algae blooms are a common occurrence in the lake, and they make the lake unsafe for people, pets, and recreation. Fish kills are becoming more and more common on the lake. Our most recent one was just a couple of weeks ago, when lake owners were pulling dozens of dead fish off the lake shore. We also were informed recently that areas of the lake, including the North Bay, have a reduction in property values because the water quality of the lake is so poor in those areas. To address these in-lake impairments, lake managers like the Lake Association have limited tools. We basically have traditionally had chemical treatments like alum or copper sulfate. Chemical treatments can be very effective for a limited period of time, maybe 8 to 10 years, but they are also very expensive. In 2018, the Lake Association looked at doing an alum treatment, and we received a quote at that time of over $3 million. Chemical treatments can also be harmful to the environment. In the 1980s, the DNR did a copper sulfate treatment on the lake, which resulted in clean water for a number of years, but it also resulted in a fish kill of almost the entire fish population in Pokegama Lake, creating a real disaster. And chemical treatments do not address the internal source of nutrient loading within the lake. They basically are a blanket or a Band-Aid that's put over the surface of the lake to keep nutrients at the bottom until they get mixed up again. Smaller bodies of water can use physical dredging. For a body of water the size of Pokegama Lake, such an application is prohibitively expensive, completely infeasible, and extremely disruptive to the environment. And so in May, the Snake River Watershed Partnership invited the Lake Association to attend a meeting to look at a new innovative clean water technology, nanobubbles. And we were shown this. This is a case study of Tad Lake and Upper Lake near Atwater, Minnesota. This was something that Jonathan was intimately involved in last year. The way this lake system works is that Upper Lake flows into Tad Lake. The first large picture shows what those lakes looked like at the beginning of last year's summer season. So you see some algae around Upper Lake, much more in Tad Lake. And throughout the season, water continued to flow from Upper Lake into Tad Lake. But nanobubbles was installed on Tad Lake. And so you can see at the end of the season in these upper pictures, Upper Lake was completely covered in algae. Tad Lake's water was clear with a little duckweed around the edges. We were very, very impressed with that technology. So impressed that we decided we needed to bring this technology to Pokegama Lake. I'm going to skip over this slide. And so here's what we did. Jill and I came to our Lake Association board and showed them this technology. They did their research, and we decided to bring this forward to all of our lake owners, not just those who were members of the association. We held meetings, introduced this technology to them, and asked for their financial support to do a pilot project on the lake. In 8 weeks, we were able to raise over $53,000 from over 210 lake owners, lake-focused businesses, and other lake users. Those dollars were matched by $50,000 from the Pokegama Lake Association, and we were able to move ahead with this project. Now I'm going to ask Jonathan to spend a few minutes explaining how a lake becomes impaired and how nanobubbles addresses that impairment, and then we'll follow up by talking a little bit more about how we implemented the project.
Thank you, Kathy. Commissioners, thank you for giving us the time to talk today. So at the crux of the problem, we have what's sad to say, almost a typical lake in Minnesota these days. One second, back up. My name is John Morales. I'm new to the Moliere team. I'm just over 2 months in, but over the last 10 years, I worked as the program manager for the Middle Fork Crow River Watershed District. And over that 10 years, I implemented a wide variety of best management practices. Not a lot of in-lake practices, much more upland practices, as in-lake practices in their current state, like Kathy said, are limited. But we focused on upland, hoping to have sort of a trickle-down effect. And in that idea is this: how do we keep a lake from becoming more impaired or disrupting this cycle that you see here of internal loading and excess loading? So essentially what's happening here is we've got a lake that has more nutrients than it can handle. And in that process, that promotes algae growth, excess vegetation growth, and in turn, there's deposition of that material in the bottom of lakes. And with that material accumulating at the bottoms of lakes, that takes oxygen. It wants to decompose, but it doesn't have the oxygen to do that. So it's constantly trying to pull oxygen and trying to do that process of decomposition, but it just doesn't have the components to do that in its current state. So a lot of times what happens is you have a sort of a community of lazy bacteria in that sediment that is sort of anaerobic, just churning around, not doing a whole lot. So the way we find a way around that is oxygen. So with the introduction of oxygen, we're able to disrupt this cycle, this positive feedback loop of excess nutrients and eutrophication. And by shifting that with nanobubbles, and what's different with nanobubbles in, the way we employ them, it's an aeration technology. Aeration in the past has been used for a number of years, but the problem is that the bubbles are buoyant. So they're floating up to the top. You got big bubbles, then you're losing a lot of that oxygen transfer efficiency that you're trying to get at, right? Well, with nanobubbles, they're just super small bubbles. And at that size, they're actually neutrally buoyant, negatively charged, and able to interact with the environment in different ways because they're so small, lots of surface area. So this is how we disrupt this, by actually having a technology that can get oxygen not only at the surface, but into those sediments where really the biggest problems are. And it's not necessarily killing the anaerobic bacteria. It's just creating an environment that allows that aerobic bacteria to flourish, right? So we're creating an environment that allows for that aerobic bacteria. Also, chemically, in anaerobic environments, phosphorus, the main limiting nutrient in water bodies that usually creates algae blooms, things like that, is leached out of the sediment. So it wants to become unbound. In oxygen-rich environments, you switch that chemical equation around and you're actually binding phosphorus. So that's quick and dirty. So 2,500 on the pin of a head, or head of a pin, I think we covered a lot of this. So this is the actual unit. So if you look, you'll see things that you guys are probably familiar with: a pump, an air compressor. Those are things that are just off the shelf. We use Gorman-Rupp pumps, Ingersoll Rand compressors. And this is important because things, as cities well know, things need maintenance, right? And having a system that allows for local maintenance really reduces on operation and upkeep. The only spot or only piece of that equipment that is specific to Moliere is the actual nanobubble generator. So essentially we're taking water in through a pump, running it through an air compressor and through a nanobubble generator. What separates us from, because there's other companies that are doing nanobubble generators, what separates Moliere though is that we're able to scale the size of that generator to any size. So whether it be a 3-inch line all the way up to a 36-inch pipe. So we're able to size it. We're also able to run any type of liquid through that. So that allows us to go into a number of other different industries. I won't mention that now, but aquaculture, oil and gas, agriculture, irrigation, a number of other ones. But, and then also we're able to use any gas source as a source for those nanobubbles. So whether it be just ambient air, oxygen, and that's what we're typically using in lakes, is actually concentrated oxygen. So rather than Putting in air, we're putting in 98% purity oxygen, which ups that oxygen transfer efficiency as well. And then, and going out. So it's a single treatment point that is shore mounted and impacting a large area of the lake. So a good way of thinking about this is if you had a fire in the corner of the room here and smoke started filling the room, it would eventually start to fill this entire room and transfer down gradient. Nanobubbles function in the same way because of their resiliency in the water. So some of the things that you'll like or that we have seen in other applications and are based off of science, and happy to share any of this information with you guys, but digestion of muck. So as you shift that environment of sediment into an oxygen-rich environment, you're actually decomposing muck. So you're gaining depth in your lake. Mitigation of nutrients, I already talked about that as far as the chemistry there. Reduce algae and HABs, that's just because you're reducing that amount of nutrient available for that. Improving water clarity, reduction of fish kills. We work with some of the biggest aquaculture industries in the world, specifically in Norway. Really very good technology for their aquaculture pens. Reduction of foul odors. That's a story for another time, but that's actually how I found Moliere is we had a hydrogen sulfide problem in Monongalia Lake, but happy to answer any questions on that later. And then reduction of coliform bacteria. All right, why a pilot?
So we are very confident in this technology. It is not a chemical solution. It is not a physical solution. It is oxygen that is coming in and allowing the lake to do its natural processes. And so why are we doing just a pilot project? Well, we want to be able to demonstrate the effectiveness of this technology to our lake owners. We need to make a significant investment in this lake, and we want to visually show our lake owners that this technology works. We also need to demonstrate the safety and effectiveness of this technology to regulators and funding agencies, specifically the DNR and the Board of Water and Soil Resources, whom I'll refer to as Bowser. And then we only have limited resources. A large project is going to be very expensive. We estimated $2.2 million for the full lake. This pilot project is $100,000. And so we needed to be responsible. We have put this project in the North Bay of Pokegama Lake because that is one of the most significantly impaired areas of the lake. This is a Google Earth picture of the North Bay of our lake. Brilliant green. It's quite extraordinary, especially if you live up there. This is also the area of the lake where property values are reduced for that very reason. We also, in the North Bay, had a wonderful private property owner who was willing to allow us to site this project on her private property. And so we have someone who was so committed to this project that they said, yes, please come use our yard. Our process was that once we were introduced to this technology and we researched it, we began planning for this project in August of last year. We did fundraising for the project in October and November, signed a contract with Moliere in December, and this project was installed on June 5th. The project will run through September, and then we will take all of the scientific data that we are gathering, both from the treatment area and the full lake, and submit that to the DNR. We realize that this nanobubbles technology is not the full solution for our lake. Last year, the Lake Association undertook a subwater assessment that is going to be used by the Soil and Water Conservation District next year to go out and knock on the doors of upland property owners and look for opportunities to do on the land projects like Jonathan was talking about in our upper watershed. The Lake Association also has a grant program to lake owners to help them offset the costs of doing lake restoration on their own shorelines. So we are taking a holistic approach to cleaning the lake. But here are our next steps. We have a timeline. We expect that it will probably take us 2 years to implement a full lake project. A big part of that will be working with the DNR. This is a new technology, and they are going to have to write new permitting protocols for this. And so we know that that will take time, and we will need to work closely with them in that. We will also be looking for funding opportunities, grants, bonding, whatever other resources we can find, including the formation of a lake improvement district. And then we'll need to work through the logistics and implementation. And so I never want to come before this board and tell you a story without asking you to help. So how can you help? With the permitting, the DNR is really trying to understand this technology at a deep level, and they don't want to move quickly, but we do. And so we would ask for this board's help in advocating with the DNR over the next year or two to quickly and effectively write permitting protocols for the new nanobubbles technology. Of course, this is an expensive project, and any consideration that the county could give to us for funding would be greatly appreciated. But we would also like to ask that you partner with the Soil and Water Conservation District in advocating with Bowser to create a funding protocol for nanobubbles. And then if we need to move into a lake improvement district, we will need the partnership of the county in helping us to implement that. Finally, I want to end with an invitation. The Lake Association in Moliere are hosting a Media Day event on July 24th at 10:30 a.m. at the Pokegama Lake Association building. You've got the address there. We would love to see you there to answer any questions you have, to have a show of force. And I have a very specific ask for Commissioner Moore after this meeting. And with that, I would open it up for any questions you may have.
Mr. Chair. Yeah. So a lake besides the Pokemon, how long would a system like that have to run?
You'll see changes in a year as far as reducing sediment and reducing the overall sediment oxygen demand. That takes time. The lake didn't happen, this didn't happen to the lake overnight. It takes time to start to reverse that. But that's essentially what we're doing, is turning back the clock on the lake and making it young again.
You can think of this as a form of biological dredging, where the bacteria are going to be eating the muck at the bottom of the lake. The less muck in the lake, less oxygen demand from the water body itself. And so it's a process that multiplies itself over time. We anticipate having this equipment in place for many years and simply reducing the amount of oxygen needed to be put into the lake over time.
Then my second question is the phosphorus that gets bound, you say, so it stays in the bottom of the lake.
Yes.
What happens over time with that phosphorus?
So in oxic environments, phosphorus binds to iron, manganese, aluminum. So as it's in an oxygen-rich environment, it will stay bound. And that's what we're doing with this project, is creating that environment so that in the long term, the lake can, persist in that more clean water state.
So the healthy lake could handle what's happening to it. So it's again?
Yeah, a common, sort of the cornerstone study of lakes with the MPCA is a TMDL. It's called a total maximum daily load. And that's how much nutrients a lake can deal with on any day in a natural state. If a lake is constantly fighting and can't catch its breath, it's going to
Quite
persist.
literally.
Yeah, it's going to persist in that turbid, nutrient-rich state. As you start to shift that around, a lake can be more resilient to incoming nutrients. If you're, if you're a little healthy, yeah, you can take a few punches and keep on ticking. The lake is always fighting, it's just gonna keep getting worse. That makes sort of sense there.
Other questions?
Question. With this, have there been any, I guess, identify any contributors to the pollution, to the muck, to the, I mean, we already have so many safeguards in place, sewer permitting, sewer inspections and sewer design, the DNR,
Yeah,
anybody manufacturing that could be leaking anything into the watershed and, what are the, I mean, to identify the problem, eliminate the problem is probably also gonna help. Have you found anything that's directly contributing to this?
sure. So this is a natural process that also gets accelerated by land uses. So, leaves falling from the trees, sitting in the lake creates muck. But also farm runoff adds nutrients to the lake. Stream bank erosion adds nutrients to the lake. All of that comes down through Pokegama Creek and through at the north and Jarvis Creek on the south. And it's just built up in that lake, in all lakes really, over hundreds of years. And here we are. And the more that we change the land use, the more we add to the nutrient load in the lake. Certainly building homes around the lake and putting in lawns doesn't help, which is why the Lake Association has created a grant funding for people to restore their lake shores. So it comes from all kinds of external sources. We want to be able to treat the internal sources. And this technology also, we would be looking at putting a unit in Pokegama Creek to start treating what's coming into the lake when we do a full lake solution.
That's one of the biggest challenges for watershed management and lake management is non-source point pollution. Yeah, we can permit, wastewater, we can permit things, but we can't permit all the ground. So that's.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think that, you're aware of the watershed plans that are
Yes.
from the state and we've been involved with Lower St. Croix for a few years now. And Snake River is just coming online. So we've been able to do some really great projects in the Lower St. Croix in the Pine County end of it, because we're the headwaters of Rock Lake and Rock Creek and in that area that feeds into that Lower St. Croix. So, that's our tie-in with soil and water is through the Snake River Watershed Board.
Yes.
And so we're very committed to that. And so
Thank you for that.
yeah, I believe because we've seen just fantastic results with working with landowners in the Rock Creek area. Really cut down on the load.
That is one of the challenges though, isn't it? Is having enough willing landowners to implement enough practices over the watershed to really move the needle.
And it was the Snake River Watershed Partnership that funded our sub-watershed assessment that will be the base tool the SWCD uses over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I will say too, when you guys came to the Snake River Watershed Management, or One Watershed, One Plan Board, that was a lot of the discussion was, prevention. But I don't remember 20 years ago, you put a sewer district in, and that's a big thing. But like you said, took a lifetime to get where it is today. It's gonna take a little bit of time to get it reversed. So I think Pokegama Lake is a very, very developed lake, but the practices we're starting to understand that, it doesn't help when the lake is not in good, you can't use it. I made the comment when I talked to the DNR lady back in the late 90s when we used to go boating on that lake, you didn't go in the lake. I mean, so that was that was quite a bit of time ago, because you would get hives on your legs and if you went water skiing and stuff like that. So, I mean, you know, flash forward 30 years, it still is probably no better than that, you know, so, I would say that this is exciting. Like I've told you before, I'm think it's cool that you took the worst part of the lake and are trying to attack that first and, just to try to get some results. So, we've been on the phone quite a bit and I'll do what I can for you, so.
Thank you.
My 10 years at the watershed district, the last year and a half of that, I was working on that Tad Lake pilot project. Cause I was in the same position as Kathy here, like I needed to do due diligence and talking to people about nanobubbles. They look at you like you got a tinfoil hat on and they're like, what are you talking about? But through that, I really came to understand the technology and the science behind it. And, fast forward and here I am. And over that 10 years, I've never seen anything that was able to change a lake in the amount of time that did.
Ask one more question. So I'm kind of intrigued by the whole process, so you probably have this answer, but at some point, if this is working and the lake can catch up to itself being healthy, like at a halfway point or something, how long does it take for that switchover to happen where it can?
Where it can,
Where's
the threshold? That's a really complicated question.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with natural environments, so.
Yeah, I would say for each water body, it's a different situation. And that's one of the things that I think Jill and I really appreciate about Moliere, how they are really an engineering driven company that looks at each lake and tries to design a solution specifically for that lake. That is an ongoing monitoring process and we will just learn that as the lake responds to it. It really depends on
Yeah, so
what's
we-
happening in the environment and whatever.
Part of
So-
the project is an intensive monitoring program. We've got 15 PhDs on staff at Moliere, specific to the surface water team. We've got Dr. Denise DeVota. She worked with the UN. So we're not just a widget, manufacturer. We are an environmental consulting firm.
So,
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question? That's not related to Pokegama Lake, but is your company done anything with leachate from landfills?
We are in wastewater, so I don't know the wastewater side of things as detailed, but I wouldn't be surprised if we worked with leachate treatment as well. But I can get back to you on that.
Okay.
thank you so, you had-
My question was just contact info. I know we got your email. Do you have a card that you can, or a phone number that you can leave with us?
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your interest and your support.
Thank you.
Right, only got 4. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks guys for that project or update, and we'll move on to Kasha 46 Lakeland Road. Who's taking this one? Is Vern Anderson here?
I had a call from him this morning. I assumed he was coming.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't see him here. He wanted to be put on the agenda. There is a PowerPoint, right, David, that he contacted you about?
Yep, and that's.
Handout?
Yep.
I think one of the big things was, he needed some information from the county on the right of way and, the consistency of the right of way with, distance from center line. And it looks to me like he made that request quite some time ago and he still hasn't gotten his information.
okay, is that something I'm confused why this is on the agenda. Is that something you're taking, or, I mean, are we?
If he's not here, I can just comment on what I know, and that's what I know is, he had made a former request. I know a FOIA, but what is the data privacy, Minnesota data privacy? He made a
Data practices.
Data practices.
That's what he asked me about this morning on the phone call, is where our policy is, and our policy is on the county website. for data access.
Okay, and then, there's a PowerPoint here. I looked at the PowerPoint. Did everybody else have a chance to look at the handout material?
I guess my question is, what are we after here? I don't understand what.
It's in the PowerPoint that he had given.
Yeah,
I don't have a copy of it here.
I see, I'm looking at it.
Okay, it looks like he must have had an emergency or something and could not attend. What's procedure for keeping this on the agenda? Do we just take the time to review the material then?
I would.
Or we table it to next month?
We, ask them to come back if we want to, or refer them to the, highway committee. And
Has the transportation committee reviewed this already?
we did not. That's what, maybe we should refer it to transportation and then
That's what I
it'll work its way back to the board.
Yeah.
That could work.
Can I make that motion?
I will make that motion to refer it to transportation. Motion.
Okay. So Matt made the motion, you second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any other discussion with this? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. All right, certificate of need request. Consider the authorization of the board chair to sign a letter to the East Central Solid Waste Commission estimating Pine County's estimates of waste over the next 10 years. Oh, sorry, I
Mr. Chair.
was reading.
Members of the board,
Nori.
Schroeder County Auditor Treasurer. So over the last several years, you've heard Steve talk a lot about the landfill over in Mora. That we are jointly involved with the Central Solid Waste Commission in our 5 surrounding counties that we work with a lot in projects. We have been working on needing to open a new cell in that landfill for the last several years. And we're getting to the point now where we need to demonstrate to the MPCA that we truly need that cell. And to do that, we have to give them estimates of what we think our future use is going to be of it. So each county is asked to put together estimates of what that future use will be, and have the county board chair submit it as part of that certificate of need process. In looking at historical data, it appears that our use goes up about 2% each year. So given that we need to give them 10 years of projected amount of garbage we think we're going to produce. And so that is what is represented on the letter. In 2025, using 2024 numbers, we'd be at 22,919 tons and going up 2% all the way through 2034, when it would be up to 27,391 tons. So it truly is estimates using the historical information we have, but it is a necessary part of them to be able to move forward to getting the permitting to do that stuff.
Makes sense to me.
And just, yeah, it's something you have to do. But just for some reminders, when we did this 10 years ago, we thought the hole that we dug was gonna last 10 years. That was our estimate. It's only been 7 years and the hole is full. So, you know, that happens. There's been more growth in our counties than, especially in Chisago and Isani County, than was anticipated probably. The other thing that happened is the total amount of garbage that got put in there has increased per person by quite a bit. So,
Is there any outside of the county stuff coming, or the counties that are involved?
not really. By our rules, we do not accept garbage from counties that are not part of the landfill, although I can. Somebody could probably find a load of garbage from Aiken County or someplace because of a route that's different, then, you know, it happens, but it's not our practice.
So we're one of 4, correct? Counties?
Five. Yeah.
Is there any breakdown to what each, like, does Pine County, we're not a fifth of the landfill?
No.
But I assume we're higher.
Yeah, and yeah, we do have a spreadsheet.
I was
that
just
shows-
curious.
I can't tell you
Yeah.
that we're like 17 or 18%.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I'd assume Isani or,
Yeah.
or it's just.
Yeah, they're bigger for one thing.
Yeah.
How much more room do you have on your site to expand? How many more years can you get?
They're saying 40-ish. 40-ish. That's, I told my colleagues on the board and at the landfill board, you know, we're just finishing up with this cell expansion. The time to think about what our next move is now, not 7 years from now or 5 years from now.
Exactly.
If we're gonna say we've been in the landfill business for 40 years, maybe it's time we start gearing up for incineration or something. The time to start that is now. And I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but we need to do our due diligence and say we're committed to landfills forever, or what's a board 40 years from now gonna do when there is no more land? And we've seen what happens when somebody tried to put a demolition landfill in Pine County. It just didn't work, you know, it was shut down. So nobody wants a landfill. Everybody wants to throw their garbage in the garbage can. They want it to go down the road. They don't want to ever hear about it again. But nobody wants to have a landfill next to their place.
All right, so we're looking for a motion.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
I'll second it.
and second by Holland, motion by Ludwig. Any other discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, same thing. All right. Kelly, performance management program participation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So since 2019, we have participated in this performance management program in which we report 10 different statistics to the state. And by us participating, we get a slight bump in our county program aid that equals about $4,000. These statistics that we report annually, they're numbers that we readily have. So it's a very quick email to the different offices asking for these numbers, and then I simply compile them. You have them in two different formats. The first is just the table format, just so you can see since we started where we've been. And then the second one is just in a graph format or a graph. Just to show you over the last 4 years, kind of graphically, so you can kind of see it a little bit better of the changes. This year, the ones that I kind of want to highlight for 2024 is, which I know when I told Becky this, she was very excited. We had a change, a decrease in our percentage of low birth weights. So we had been 7% of the births were born with low birth weight. And that number went down. So that is big deal and exciting. So it's at 6.8% now. So that was a change we hadn't seen. And then the other one that I talk about this every year, but that very bottom one, the recycling percentage, which kind of piggybacks off of the discussion we just had with expanding the landfill, is you look at that and you can see for 2024, it says 18.25%. Which you'd think that went down from last year, and it was significantly down from 2021 and 2022. The problem with that number is those are all self-reported numbers. So from January through March every year, the office does a survey out to businesses, out to our haulers, out to our recyclers to accumulate how many pounds did they recycle. In some years, we're able to follow up a lot more with people who don't respond. Some years people are just better at responding. Some years there's a variety of reasons. So while we report that recycling percentage every year, I struggle with it because it really is a self-reported number on, are we doing better? Are we doing worse? It's very hard to tell. Any questions on that?
No, we need a motion, it looks like.
Yes, to accept the resolution, and then I will send that to the state, and then our county program aid will be just a little bit higher.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Holland. At a second. Second, Nelson seconds. Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Thank you. Resolution amending the village apartment tax abatement.
And Leslie is online for this one.
Okay.
Hi, good morning. I'm Leslie Sauter, your Economic Development Coordinator, and I do have a request in front of you to amend the Village Apartments tax abatement resolution, because as we started implementing the tax abatement payments, city staff had changed and they have requested that we no longer send them our abatement payment, which then they would combine with theirs and send one payment out to the developer, that we just directly pay the developer ourselves and they would handle theirs on their end, and there would be no combination in one payment out. In order to do that, we just wanted to amend the resolution when enacted this tax abatement just to keep our paperwork in order. So we just have this amended resolution in front of you, literally just crossing out the word city, replacing it with county, and then adding in the and/or tax abatement agreement, because the contract for private development is referenced, but then there's also the tax abatement agreement, which we executed, which kind of outlines how the tax abatement is paid out. So the history is that this was approved back in 2022, and the property value at the time before development was around $30,000, not generating a whole lot of property tax payments at that time, and it is now completed development and had a taxable market value over $2 million. The abatement term is for 15 years or up to $200,000, whichever kind of terms out first. So we are in year 2 of this, I believe, our second round of payments, and just kind of hashing out the details and trying to make this go smoothly. And this would be one way to help keep this process moving. Any questions, comments?
No.
It just sounds like just a technical change to me.
Sure is.
I'll move that.
Okay. Got a motion by Holland. Second by Nelson. Any other discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. All right,
Thank you.
number 7. Thank you. Amend the time of the June 24th, 2025 special meeting.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I can cover this, and Roger, feel free to add, but just in talking with Roger and Leslie and some of the participants, 10 o'clock start time seemed to work better for everyone. And so this is one of those technical changes that we're asking for, just to start at 10.
You need a motion? Oh, okay, so we do need a motion. You'll move it, Nelson. Second by Ludwig. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at 9 so I make it on time, so. Maybe they'll have breakfast for me or something. Go ahead.
Here, I just want to say, I'm really looking forward to this meeting. I know Leslie has done a lot of work, and so has David, and on putting this together. I think it's going to be a great highlight, and if we can at all possible be there, I think it's going to be some valuable information. So
Good.
Thanks.
Good. Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a while since we got out a little bit, so yeah, that'll be good. All right,
clearly it's the subject that would come.
Right.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same thing. Okay,
Bring our boots.
Sheriff's Office,
No.
yeah, Sheriff's Office, I didn't write it. down.
Dispatch console.
Dispatch Council. Mr. Sheriff, you're coming up. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, here asking for approval on a dispatch improvement project. It, excuse me, it's It would increase our paging capabilities across, so we have 3 active dispatch councils. Not all 3 of them are able to do the paging process. So the improvement would be to add a 4th, not fully functional council that would hold the key to the paging, which would allow the other 3 to all page. So right now, the one that holds the key can't page. So by setting up a paging station, if you will, it will allow all 3 dispatch councils to page. Obviously, the benefits of that shouldn't have to be over-explained anyways. And the money is actually, there's $50,000 of state money that's sitting there that we need to spend by the end of the month. And there's the rest of it, it's it's about $120,000 project. And the rest of it is already in the E911 funding. So it wouldn't be new funds. It would be spending the funds that the state has allocated to improvements and the funding that's set aside for the E911 improvements. So basically we'd be approving money that's there that needs to be spent from the state, especially. So any questions on that? I can, as long as they're not too technical, get through them.
My only question is, you got space?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. I haven't been down there in a long time, so, yeah.
it's basically going to be a computer setup as
Okay.
Yeah. Will this allow direct text to
No,
911?
no, it's not, yeah, it's not that yet.
Okay.
We're still,
Full of that upgrade if that ever,
yeah, again, this would just be for the paging of our local responders essentially.
Any other
questions? So there's no county money going into this project?
No, because the money that's there has to go back to the dispatch on both sides of the funding stream, so.
New county money.
How does this fall with like bidding? Usually you bid items, so how does that work?
We're using, both vendors that we're using would be ones that have already in play there. So Motorola equipment is what all of the equipment is through right now, and DSC is our vendor that does all of our repairs, upgrades, all of that already. So they're already, basically it's upgrading what we've got.
Sure. Yeah. What does it take for us to become tax compliant? What does that cost?
That I don't know. That's still coming up with all the enhanced 911 stuff that should be rolling out a lot quicker this year is to get in line with that.
excuse me, Sheriff, but from what I understand and sitting on the Northeast Radio Board, Communication Board, it's something that people like me thought would really catch on, but if you text it now, it'll work. But it goes through the loop.
Ours goes through St. Louis, yeah.
And you don't notice it. We don't notice it. But it's not like 10%, even 50% of the calls. I think it's way less than 10%.
That's my understanding.
It is, people are doing it. So it's not like everybody's first thing when they need to call 911 is they call 911. They don't text 911.
What happens though is you don't have cell service, your text will work.
Yes, and that's why it's set up to work the way it does. But it's not like it's I thought originally it was gonna be like 50 or more percent of all 911.
Well, it's more of a
text, but
It's a backup plan.
It is, and we truly do want the voice over texting, but having that option is one we're still working towards.
maybe as we age out.
So you get some now, right? So when it goes to Duluth, how long does it take to get, what's the delay on that?
I don't know. It isn't much, but I don't know.
Pretty instant. It's like making a cell phone call or a text if you send it. If I sent one to Jeff right now, or I sent if he was in Toledo, he'd probably get it at the same time,
Yeah.
you know?
So you're talking,
Yeah.
mere second.
Then,
Okay, so we need a motion.
I can make that.
Okay. Colin makes motion, we got a second. Ludwig, second. Any other discussion? Just one other thing, how long before your operation?
I think it's a couple months before it is, but
Sounds good. All right, hearing no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All same thing. Thanks, Joe. All right, open meeting law update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the purpose of this agenda item is just to confirm that all of you are aware of the changes to the open meeting law effective July 1st, and it creates more flexibility for you to attend meetings remotely. And then I am looking for some feedback if you have a preference as to whether we would just have every agenda have a notice, which if you wake up in the morning and are sick and can't go to the board meeting, then you could join from home. Or if there's an expectation that you would individually say, hey, I'm going to be not in person. Can you put that notice on the agenda for next week's meeting?
I think it's just helpful if you know you're gonna be gone. But I think the best part of this thing is when you think you're gonna be at the meeting, but you're stuck at because the flight got canceled, if you've been on vacation, or you got sick, or your wife got sick and you're at the hospital in Rochester or something, that Monday night you could say, hey, I've got to be remote. So I think if you know by Thursday of the week before, it's just incumbent upon us to notify the administrator's office that we're going to be remote. I don't know if we need to make a resolution that way or.
I agree. Yes, last night my son was shooting in Alexandria and they had a bunch of rain delays, so I missed his second because I had to get back in time. It would have been perfect to just say, hey, this happened, call David, and just say, I think it's our responsibility. I think it's our responsibility whether or not we're gonna show up or not, providing you're incapacitated, that if you're gonna show up for the meeting or not, and or just let somebody know.
Right.
It's not that hard in this day and age with a text or a phone call to just say, not gonna be here, don't wait for me. And or I'm gonna join from home because my kid is sick or something like that. I think this is great because it gives us that flexibility. And if you know you're gonna be out of town, like.
What are the limits that are published? Are there limits to it?
Well, it has to be noticed as the same for a special meeting. So the timing of the notice is no different under the new law than it was under the old law. We have always included it on the agenda because it seemed like intuitively to make sense. And we always post the agenda within the timeline required for the posting of a special meeting, which is 3 days posted notice.
So wouldn't it be smart to do like you say, just put it on every agenda?
That would give you the most flexibility and result in the fewest errors. And then.
Is that a big deal?
I don't think it's a big deal. It's only, to me, it would only be a big deal when some of you show up in person and don't know where the others are and if they plan to join remotely or not. And there's just confusion, right?
And I think we put it on the agenda, but that's still our responsibility to.
I think, right, then you need a link.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
let some of you know.
Yeah, it's still if I plan on joining next meeting remotely, I still think we should let David know, or whoever the administrator is that's coordinating that meeting, or the chair or somebody, that, hey, I'm gonna join remotely, I'm not joining, I'll be there, whatever type of deal. So
I was wondering, like, on the joint party agreement, you know, those JPAs, can they be the same?
If they're covered under the open meeting law, it would be the same. So all of the boards that you're on that are covered by the open meeting law should be having the same conversation about, the potential to join remotely with more flexibility.
Yeah, because right now, I believe ECRDC will not offer a remote.
Yeah, the law doesn't require that the agency provide remote technology, right? You as a board, I presume, could decide, we're not gonna use interactive TV, we're not gonna live stream our meetings, you're either here or you miss. And so each board, I presume, could have that, discussion and make their own decisions.
Right.
And we have the technology, we've been, I think, using it successfully, as you saw this morning. Leslie is a great example, is able to join, from her office in Pine City because she has commitments down there.
So we're free to not go to a public place through that, right? We can do that. Yeah, that's a nice thing.
That's
You do
a
it-
very good
You
thing.
can do it from your car, you can do it from wherever.
Preferably not when you're
gonna-
driving.
I'm gonna test,
I don't have to drive 200 miles.
we'll test it out at our July 1st meeting because it goes into effect July 1st. right?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Because I do have a doctor, some surgery scheduled. And if I'm not in surgery, I will join remotely.
I'm assuming you still have to be seen and heard.
yes, that requirement has not changed.
Which you're under anesthesia.
And so we'll proceed with just including the general notice that, commissioners may join remotely. And then you can check in, if it's working or if it's not working for you as a board.
Okay.
So what does it do to the roll call vote thing?
That still is unchanged. All votes would be roll call.
Log it down a little.
But the only, and I agree with the flexibility. We want to make it as flexible as possible. However, aside from that, maybe we should consider as a board policy out of courtesy that if you are going to be remote, that policy would be such that you give notification prior to the meeting starting that at some point, so that we don't have this limbo. Are they gonna, are we looking for that online or are they not showing up or what's happening?
Yeah.
So
I think that's, I don't know if we need to have a policy, but maybe we should. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And you still have to ensure that you have a quorum.
Right.
Right? So if people are gonna miss, it's helpful to know that, just so that other commissioners know that they need to be present. If you're the third person and you don't know that two others are gonna miss, so in any case, we can start July 1st. We'll have the general notice. And then, I think you've, shared kind of expectations of each other. So that's good.
Okay, so we,
I think it's a good plan.
all right. Legislative update.
Just a couple of notes. So the special session did result in, all of the budget bills being passed. The impact is more favorable than the worst case scenarios. The initial, whether it was the governor, the House, or the Senate proposal, were all worse than what actually transpired. In Health and Human Services, there's a little bit of, gamesmanship, in the sense that there's a task force that was formed that has to find savings. So the legislature created a group that still has some hard work to do, but at least for 2026, we came out better than any of the three proposals. I did note that there were no changes to ESST and PFML, the paid family medical leave, and then I was corrected. There is in statute a maximum amount that can be withheld without legislative action that the commissioner has authority for. So in statute, the number right now is 0.88%. The maximum was 1.2%. It's now 1.1%. So can't imagine what the backdoor deals were with that, but the commissioner lost a little bit of authority to raise that rate, which actually is really important, because that number started out lower than 0.88. It was moved to 0.88 based on an actuarial study. And the commissioner has had the authority to go to 1.2%. That's a big number that's coming out of, whether it's the county or the employee. So, but anyways, I use that as an example that we're always learning things about what the legislature did. And then another thing on the positive side is there was some bridge bonding. And Mark thinks that we got some money in there for the County State Aid 46 bridge. So that's positive.
So are they done? Obviously you're not, or is there talk of another one, or did they get it?
My understanding is everything that needed to be done is done. The only outstanding thing is if the federal government makes changes to reimbursements or payments to the states or to local governments, then the legislature might need to reconvene. For example, there is at the federal level discussion about right now, there's a 50% reimbursement for the administration of SNAP. And there's discussion about changing that to 25% federal, 75% local. And in this context, when I say local, it's state and county, because each state does it different. But the federal government, if they say, for example, if they drop the reimbursement from 50% to 25%, that sort of a cut would probably be something the legislature might want to work on some changes for.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Move on to commissioners update. Facilities committee was canceled, meeting with the city. A couple months ago, me and Steve kind of, well, with David and the city's help, started having monthly meetings. We don't know if they're gonna continue monthly or every other month, whatever. But anyways, just to talk to the mayor and council. Is it designated council person or does it change? It's only been one, but.
Yeah, and this has been with the city of Pine City.
Yeah, and the administrator, just to see what's going on. And then we just kind of go back and forth about what they're doing, what we're doing. Very, very good conversation. It keeps us in the loop because you know how it is. We get a lot of questions. What's the city doing here? What's the city doing there? And they get same questions. What's the county doing? So it's usually an hour-long meeting and it's been very productive. So you want to add anything?
No, just that there's been a joint powers board that was formed about almost 20 years ago for a piece of fiber optic cable that ran from Pine Tech to the county board. And it was Pine Tech, the city of Pine City, and the county. We shared that because there was an opportunity of rebuilding Highway 61 through the city, put some conduit in the street so future carriers could blow fiber through that conduit. That conduit it's done its job. There isn't the need for that because now there is fiber pathways without having a private network in there. And so we think it's time to dissolve that joint powers board. We haven't really met for probably 5 years, maybe longer. They've worked out all the details now between what piece of fiber is doing what. I think, Ryan, they have anyway, with our IT department and the city and Midco. And so anyway, the city sold their assets to Midco. And so there's really no point in us still having that board. So that'll be coming down the pike, just so you're aware.
Okay, East Central Regional Juvenile Center.
Yep. So we had our meeting and the new chair, or the chair, they're not new, the chair is Terry Thomas, was reelected and Vice Chair was saying, reelected Mike McMillan. The budget surplus for 2024 was $115,869, which is gonna stay in the facility fund. There's $144,000 worth of projects for 2025. 2026 is $230,000 for upgrades, and 2027 is $500,000. After that, it falls off. So there's just those major things they had set, they have to do, there's a roof, stuff like that. But anyway, I think the biggest discussion there is the fee increase and when they're gonna let us know our number, because the commissioner's like, we gotta plan budgets this year, because we didn't know much from the legislative yet. At that time, they told us it's gonna be 6 weeks or something, and it'll never happen. 6 weeks. But it seems like they're always creeping the numbers up for our daily. And the only thing I'll say to this board is, I try to tell you guys where our numbers are, and Terry does too. Like, we're paying for a spot, and it's costing us money. But, if you go to pay as you go, and we have one bad stretch, it costs a lot more money. But the member versus non-member isn't that much, so you're paying, that's why we kept saying, raise that to a bigger number. So you force people the membership. So I hope to have more discussion on that when Terry comes for budget, to our budget plan. So I'm just kind of want to set the table, because I don't know what that's going to be, but you guys all have thoughts. And I know what mine are, if I do, but we're up to we're a 5-member board.
I used to be on that board, and the problem has always been, if you're not a member and you have to place a kid and they don't have a bed opening,
Yes.
then you're transporting that kid to Bemidji or
And that,
Grand Forks or someplace.
and it's probably a bigger problem now than when you were there, Steve, because there's
Less facilities.
They closed so many.
Yeah, they used to
That's
be
what
one in
we got.
Duluth you could go to.
Stay in last. We need a bed, but it costs us money. But Google are awarded the county by statute, so.
All right, well, thank you. East Central Solid Waste Commission.
I understand JJ wasn't able to get there to
Okay,
substitute for me, but I did call John yesterday and got an update from him. The meeting went fine, and the worry was that, remember last fall when they were building the cell, they got the plastic liner down and then it froze, so they couldn't put the sand down on top of it. And then the state said, we've never had this happen before. You gotta wait till the ground thaws out, and then you gotta retest those pores, samples of clay. So they had to do that. They sent them in. It takes a couple of weeks to get the results back, and that passed. So they're finishing up some wiring and piping and starting to lay the sand down. So it'll be ready for garbage by the time they get the top finished off on the old cell.
all right, East Central Regional Library.
In our last meeting, they did, committee approved the, salary schedule for this next year. That was significant. Also, maybe upcoming, we have our first budget meeting next Monday. So, and that's specifically the different county commissioners that will be meeting. So if you have any input, I would appreciate that as far as what our position's gonna be on that budget. And I get the feeling from just discussion with the other board members, the other counties, that they're perhaps looking to do some sort of belt tightening on the budget, at least as refers to the county's portions of commitment to that. So with that in mind, you have some feedback that you want to give to me between now and then, that would be appreciated. So
I do remember, and I don't know if they did, work on that a little bit, but I believe wasn't the library's got a huge reserve?
They did have a big reserve.
Or maybe they,
It's about a little, right around 50% right now, so.
okay,
So there is room to, because we just had the auditor's report, yeah.
and I know their auditor wants more, like it's.
The auditor said we are right in the adequate.
Okay,
And the range of library boards that they cover, you know, there's a wide range in there, and so, because that question was asked, so.
okay,
Yeah, I don't know where that's gonna go.
Mr. Chair, just, so Roger, in the past, the library has been pretty straightforward about saying if you cut your funding, we'll just cut your hours. Is that still kind of the perspective? I mean, so if any particular county wanted to cut, they'd reduce hours. And maybe because I hear that maybe Isanti and Chisago are first in line to consider that, is at least my understanding. Are they big enough that they would have an outsized impact on the ability of the agency to continue?
Well, there's two things to consider there. If you as a individual county chooses to reduce your particular amount, aside from all the rest, that's where those implications come, where services would be cut. You would feel it, I would say disproportionately. However, as a budget group, if we all decide that there's going to be a reduction, then that impact is not disproportionately shared. And that's part of the whole budgeting process is to be, I would say, proactive in that. And let's all come to if we're going to have a reduction, let's all agree on what that reduction is. And then it's going to get spread out. And, it's just like our budgets. We have certain things that are committed that we have to fund. And we only have limited different areas of income. And so with the library, there are other sources of income besides just the counties. And so we've looked at, what's the federal impact? What's the state impact? And they've been bringing that information to us. And so if just say, for example, if we do reduce the county overall portion, that's not going to have a direct, like a correlation, one-to-one correlation to library hours, unless we choose to do it on our own. And that's part of the joint powers agreement, and it's there for a reason. I guess my thought is let's work together collectively with the other counties. And I think it's a much better approach. Yeah. So that's where that's at.
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And then with that, Roger, I think there's a state mandated amount that we are obligated to pay. But we pay an additional 126,000 or 145,000 extra above and beyond.
And the state maintenance of effort has been unchanged, I think, since about 2011. I think that was when, I think it tracks back to the Governor Pawlenty budget cuts. That was one of the things that I think was frozen at that time. And so that's a metric that is a number, but is not something that's been evaluated for quite a long time.
And again, that's part of the whole budget. I mean, that going above and beyond that is what the budget that if we went back to that maintenance effort, that would be back to where we would just cut our hours to, so.
If we chose to do that individually, yes.
Yep.
It would have a disproportionate effect on us.
Yeah, if you did it collectively, it would still have an impact on the.
Yes, because it's a significant number. And I mean, you talk about where we're at. There are other counties that are are significantly above that. Because we get those numbers, we know what that minimum maintenance effort is.
Yeah.
And if, I'll just say this, if we all went back to that, it would have it would be a significant impact. I don't think there's a stomach to go all the way back to that. That's not gonna. Whether you agree with that or disagree with that is immaterial. It would be
You pretty much.
devastating to that
Library out
budget.
of business.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear that like Pine County isn't themselves just going above and beyond. That's collectively.
Yeah,
in the budget.
every county is.
Yes.
It's, and that goes back to the joint powers agreement and that formula, how it was devised. And we live by the formula, you know, as far as how it's proportioned out. But it's our board that sets that amount, what the overall amount that we collect. So that's what we'll be working on.
Yep. Well, good luck. I remember it was always interesting, so.
That's a good word for it.
Yep. Interesting. And you know, the library does provide a lot of very good sources or services, but it is expensive and it's tough. So, and with that, the cities and they do contribute and some friends of libraries contribute a lot. So there's a lot of stuff in play. It's just the counties control the budget essentially.
Correct.
So,
Great.
Mr. Chair, I've got one question. Do they still have a lot of people coming in that use that for their computer business and their business at home and stuff, so they don't have service? Do they talk about that? Because that was one thing that was referred to us a few years ago, the number of people that came in and did all their online business at the library because they weren't getting services at home.
It still exists, although with connectivity, you know, happening, it's maybe decreasing, but
I think just anecdotally, you know, I don't have any figures. I stop in the Pine City Library quite often and just noticing how many people are sitting at those computers, it's still a big number. I mean, because they probably have a fiber running by their house, but they can't afford the fiber. So that is their computer network is the public library.
or they'll be using the Wi-Fi.
They'll be using the fiber, yeah.
Which is, you know, that's fine.
all right, Soil and Water Conservation District.
Did not attend.
All right, Kettle, Upper St. Croix, one watershed, one plan.
Yeah, it was a normal meeting. We're splitting them up every other month now. They updated us on the projects, no new projects, but they had to move $50,000, which they're allowed to do to a project we already had in the pipe. And then there was discussion on the SPS systems that are near a river, a stream, or a lake. So whatever they were referring to was, I don't know if it was our ordinance or whatever, but I said, well, don't the shorelines, well, whatever they're using, they just say near. So they wanted us to establish. I said, well, I would just use the shoreline ordinance for number setback, just a setback. I don't know how it applies to the watershed. So I don't know where we're at, but more. Other than that, it wasn't nothing major happened.
State Community Health Services Advisory Committee.
I had a conflict and was unable to attend.
Okay. Law Library, yeah, I got there a little late. I don't think I missed much, did I, Reese? The biggest discussion was they're gonna do an article in the paper, Judge Martin, just to kind of, in all the papers, she was gonna try to get something in there about the library, what they offer, and everything like that. And that was kind of, the other big discussion was that she is retiring this fall. So she's got her replacement picked out, which is Judge Wynn. And so we were kind of going through some of that stuff. So that was kind of her disciplinary action for leaving us, so she's got to do that report. So, which she's super excited and she'll be great. She loves the law library, but otherwise mostly just business as usual, I think, so. Okay, Central Minnesota Jobs and Training.
I wasn't able to, meet.
Okay, you did.
Any of the three there.
Okay. Board of Equalization.
Well, it was one of the easiest ones we ever had.
I would,
I would like to attribute that to the fine work that our staff has done. Because there's human beings that do that work, and there's human beings that are being affected, and sometimes the two don't match up. And so when the staff is able to work with the people involved and help them understand what the issue is, it calms everybody down.
and I think that's the biggest thing. The biggest takeaway I had from it was we had nobody show up, make an appointment. And then you know how we do the assessor, recommendations? There's 5, I think, on there.
Just,
I mean, I remember 20 of them and 15 and lots of numbers. And I think that's attributed to they're doing a good job. When we used to have local assessors in every different area, then stuff was getting a lot more messed up and stuff was getting missed, forgotten. Like Steve said, I think it just attributes to that department, how good a job they're doing. Yeah, and it was refreshing. So.
and the other thing is real, you know, prices have kind of leveled off. There's not 6 people waiting to buy the next house.
Yeah.
Or the next Mako.
Did you have something?
I was just gonna accentuate what you said about having the countywide assessing, and having that consistency. You know, it was a number of years ago in this very room, we heard about that, but it just took a long time to get that implemented, and I think you're starting to see the benefit of that.
I agree.
I remember the last person that said to me, they were from Chisago County and they were just working because they didn't have one up there. And how do you change your mindset? You know, when they're used to assessing Chisago would come to mind. You know, there's gonna be some.
And like what Steve said too, again, is a lot of people don't understand the process. So if you have it used to be if you had an issue, you just came right to the Board of Equalization. Well, now, the assessing department works with that person and tries to get them to understand what's going on and what it's not an appraisal system. That's not the way they do it, or it is, but it's a mass appraisal and they need to understand that, how it works. And I think they do a great job and really work tirelessly to try to minimize that, which is good. So.
It'd be really nice to get our classifications down to 10, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Talk to your legislatures. All right, any other meetings anybody attended? Is there anything other to come before the board? Hearing none, take a peek at your upcoming meetings. If you're having an issue getting to them, not gonna make it, want to join remotely, please listen to what we said and try to make some arrangements. So otherwise, we'll declare the meeting adjourned.